Dallas Famous podcast is supported by the Mullen & Mullen Music Project. The Music Project was created by Mullen & Mullen Injury Law Firm to champion the independent music scene in North Texas. I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up? Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all for us? Yeah.
This week on the Dallas Famous Podcast, we sit down with Pam Seal, a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader during the pivotal 1975 and 76 seasons. This was a time when the squad was transforming into a national pop culture phenomenon. Pam shares firsthand stories from the sidelines of Super Bowl X and the legendary Hail Mary playoff game, offering a rare glimpse into the early days of the DCC brand. But her journey didn't end there. Pam went on to build a multifaceted career in the entertainment industry, working in print, film, and commercials. Her enduring connection to the DCC squad is also highlighted in the Netflix docuseries America's Sweethearts, Dallas Cowboys Cheerleaders. Pam's stories are gold, rich with history, humor, and the kind of behind-the-scenes details that only someone who lived it can provide. I know you're going to love it. Here it is. We are back at the Deep Ellum Community Center. Hello, we've got Pam Seal here with us. Now, Pam, I usually start with like a list of things that people have done, and it would be a very long show if I did that. I mean, the highlights are you were one of the original America's team Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders, but you've been a singer, you've been a dancer, you've been an actress. If somebody comes up to you and they go, "What do you do?" What do you say?
Well, I guess kind of a Jill of all trades. I don't bowl, okay? So don't ask me to bowl.
Okay, fair.
But in the entertainment industry, I think, we had texted a little bit. I was just really raised around a lot of music and laughter and fun and dance and musicals and Bob Hope specials and Dean Martin. And both of my parents were great singers. And my dad did home movies. He was a photographer, with the first Polaroid on the block, and all of that sort of thing. So we were always posing and singing and all of that. My mother was a professional percussionist, which is why my daughter, Chelsea Danielle, followed in her footsteps.
Who we had on the show.
Yes, whom you had just a few weeks ago, and whom we're just honored that she won the Best Auxiliary Percussionist in Dallas from the Dallas Entertainment Awards.
Oh, yeah.
A night we will never forget. We were so excited with that. And so she got that gift from my mom. My mother, she was pretty much teaching my brother to be the drummer. And although I played around on it a little bit, but I would say if you're a percussionist, you're usually a good dancer because you've got the beat.
The rhythm, yeah.
If you're a percussionist, you learn music pretty fast. As well. And so I think I was a pretty good monkey. And I loved watching American Bandstand. Back in the day, Ron Chapman, before he became one of the most famous DJs in the world, he had a show here at North Park called Something Else. And he had kind of a American Bandstand kind of thing. And there were the girls that were on the blocks, and they were the go-go dancers. Mm-hmm. And you were trying to do all of the moves and all of that sort of thing. And then, of course, Soul Train. And then that's where you learned how to do more of your jazz, type of moves and all of that sort of thing. The first time I was ever asked to pose for anything I was in Big Town Mall, which was the first enclosed mall in Texas. And a gentleman came up to us, I guess I was 4 years old, and asked my parents, could I take her picture for some kind of ad or something he was going to do? And if they said yes, I could pick a prize. And so the prize that I picked was a pair of plastic high heel shoes. And I wore those around everywhere. And then we had gone to a garage sale, I guess at age 6. And then this kitten had ridden under our car for like about a mile, and I found it, and I ended up in the newspaper for that. So that was kind of the next thing that was kind of like getting in the newspaper, and that was a big deal to do that. So then when I went to high school, I started singing in choir, started winning. I was also a roller skater. We had a roller rink down the street, and I used to compete with that and won some, medals. But the thing about roller skating, there was no Olympics for it.
Right.
So when I became a cheerleader in high school, that took all of my time, and then the roller skating kind of stopped. However, it helped me later when I moved to Los Angeles, and roller skating was big, and I did a lot of commercials using my roller skating. So, as God's kind of connecting the dots for you and you're learning different things, you find, as you have in your career, that all of a sudden, this is turning into a job for you and something else fun that you love to do using, all of the arts. So in high school, the big talent show. And so 2 of my friends, they were my backup singers and the dancers, so we're doing our American Bandstand, something else, Soul Train kind of thing. And I was singing Carole King, I feel the earth move under my feet. And so we had the show going on, and we won first place. So we were like, so we were big deals at school. I did not make cheerleader the next year.
At school?
I was blackballed. I learned a lesson, a very important political lesson. So a person who was Ron Chapman's, I guess, secretary at KVIL, she was kind of a big deal. Her daughter was a competition to me. See, because I was a jazz dancer and not a just go fight win person, she had said something kind of not too nice about the way I danced. I didn't make it because of what she had said. So that pushed me into drill team, even though 3 coaches came back and said, hey, she's the best one we had. But I was getting too much attention, I think. Anyway, but as God had it, not knowing what my future was going to be, because I had no dance lessons, I was just a good monkey. The drill team, I became co-captain, and the dance was what I needed to start focusing on, because I could do those stiff go, fight, win movements.
Sure.
But learning, more of the jazz dancing and that type of thing. Yeah. So that worked out. As I was heading towards graduation at North Mesquite High School, which, by the way, I went to school with Jerry Hall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jerry and her sister Rosie was actually one of the very first Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. I was a third from our high school. There was also Dolores Makeda, and some great stories about Jerry Hall. They used to work at our local Dairy Queen.
Wow. That's so cool.
And Jerry's mom kept telling her, you got to get an education. She said, no, I'm going to be rich and famous. Just wait and see. And I had told Rosie, I said, well, I read Jerry's book, and I said I was so mad at some of the things that Mick did. And she says, oh, yeah, he kind of has a way of pissing everybody off. and she said, but, he's okay. And also from our high school was my classmate, Sandra Miller, who became Miss Texas and Miss America and Mrs. America.
So, okay, wait, let me just pause for a second. Is Mesquite like this hotbed of beautiful women? Because this sounds like amazing.
I think so. We were really blessed. We had a lot of talent.
Yeah.
In our school. Like when I would sing like for UIL contest and stuff, Sandra would play the piano for me. And she was kind of very shy. And when she became Miss Texas, I was like, what? And she just really came out of her shell. She's a great spokesperson, narrator at a lot of these pageants. So it's really fun to see how so many people have come about. And also, ironically, Dickie Trammell, who later married Judy Trammell, who is our Dallas Cowboy Cheerleader choreographer at the time.
Okay.
We were high school favorites together.
Oh, okay.
And so Dickie always says, be sure and tell Judy what a good deal she got, and all of that. So just great. So kind of in the family.
Right. So you had actually sent me like your bio, which and at the very end you said you were writing a book, and I can see that it will be a very interesting book because you're very good at like you put your thoughts together well. Like I followed it very closely. So I'm remembering now, like you had this moment in high school where you're like, oh, I could graduate early.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where I was kind of going, because I really loved my classmates. And when you go to school with all of the same people, they're kind of family with you. But I also had the people that gossiped and stuff, that kind of wanted to make your life miserable.
Sure.
And so I think we all have those. And I started thinking, do I want to get out a year early? I have the credits to do it. Or do I want to graduate in 1976 at our anniversary of America, 200 years, which was kind of pretty cool to do the bicentennial. But I kept feeling like God wanted me to get out early. And so I went for it. I just said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and graduate. I'm just going to see where things go. So I graduated, and I told my daughter, I said, the thing that I should have done and what I want you to do is when you go from this side of the stage to the graduation side of the stage, you need to have a plan.
Right.
You'll feel better about it if you have a plan, because all of a sudden you're not seeing these same people anymore. You're kind of not sure what you're going to do. And so my dad had seen an ad in the Dallas paper saying that there was an audition for Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders. Well, I was 17 because I'd graduated early, really supposed to be 18. And I said, well, when is it? He said, it's tomorrow. And I'm like going, oh, so I have a couple of hours to put this together and think about it. So I went and got a really hot song, and I started putting it together. It had to be 2 minutes. And I went over to my friend Kim, who had dance lessons and who was my backup singer and vocalist and a great singer herself. She became very, very popular, a singer with her own band, and Kim Seal. And so she had a really cool little step. We threw that in. And so off I was going the next day to Texas Stadium to the very last audition they were having. And it was really exciting to go into Texas Stadium and then to go up into the Texas Stadium Club is where they had it. And you could see the field and all of that. And so you start looking at everybody and you're like going, oh, there's a lot of pretty girls up here.
Right.
I hope I can outdance these girls,
Yeah.
And so my mother, being in band, a majorette, professional drummer, she had always told me, you need to snap your head. You need to, really put the energy into it. So that's how I danced. And so back then, women didn't really sling their hair so much because they didn't want to mess it up. But I did. So I would snap my head and just put everything I had into it. And after I had auditioned, Texie Waterman comes over to me. And, of course, she had played Broadway. And it's quite a story how she became the choreographer for the Dallas Cowboys. She came over and she says, who taught you how to dance? And, she has her cigarette because Texie always had a cigarette in her hand.
Right.
Said, who taught you how to dance? I said, really? American Bandstand, Soul Train. And she says, well, I like your style. So the 2 days later, a letter comes in the mail from the Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
And so Daddy says, hey, the Dallas Cowboys are contacting you. And I said, yeah, it's probably going to say, hey, thanks for coming out. We appreciate it. We hope to see you again next year. And he says, well, open it and see what it says. And I said, no, Daddy, you open it. You tell me what it says. And he opened it and he screamed. I thought he was going to go through the roof. He said, you made it. You have to be at rehearsal on Thursday.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so that started an amazing adventure. So you have to understand that the Dallas Cowboys started in 1960. And, Bob Lilly is known as Mr. Cowboy because he had all the accolades from TCU. He was the very first one that was hired as a Dallas Cowboy. He was the first into the Ring of Honor. He was, which was my year that we cheered in '75. He was also the first one into the Hall of Fame. And even though you had guys like Bob Lilly, the Dallas Cowboys didn't win one game their first year. So Tex Schramm, who was brilliant, brought us the time clock. He also brought us the windsock. And all of those types of things. He came from a entertainment background. He actually is the one who got Olympics on television. A lot of people don't know that. He's the one who came up with the idea for the Cowboy Cheerleaders. So he had said, we need to have like some models or something on the sideline to get some action going. So Bob Brock was a pretty famous writer for the Dallas Times Herald, I think it was. And his wife, Dee, had been a model. She was a teacher. And he approached her and said, hey, this is my idea about having some models. Since you've been a model, what do you think about that? And she said, you don't want models on the sideline. She said, they can't do anything. They're going to demand that they're paid. She said, you've got some of the best high school cheerleaders right here in Dallas. Let's just audition the best ones, put a uniform on them, and change the cheers to Cowboys. So that's what they started in 1961. And so the Cowboys started winning. So now the cheerleaders are going to stay. Later, they decided, since college teams had guys and they could do lifts, they decided that they would add some boys. Then they decided, Dee Brock said, hey, we got every kind of person watching the Dallas Cowboys now, because now they're starting to win. And she said, we really need some African-American girls on this team. So she went to a really great lady, Miss Francis, and she had a great African-American cheerleading team. She said, I really need your help. And so we got our first African-American, and she hired her to be the first African-American choreographer for our national team.
Nice.
So that was pretty cool, because the Cowboys cheerleaders actually started breaking down, that barrier for the African-American community, which I think is really, really cool. And a lot of the girls that were first, to be in those particular squads will really tell you how appreciative they were of that, and how they were very welcomed like anybody else and part of the team. So that's a really part of the interesting story as well. So when the Dallas Cowboys went to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, and they won in 1971, Tex Schramm realized the cheerleaders were getting a lot of attention. And he said, we really need something more Broadway. And he said, I'm ready to get something that has a little bit more than sis boom ba, was what he was saying. It's got to be more than sis boom ba. And so that's when he went to Dee. He said, this is my idea. Dee knew Texie. She knew that her mother had a dance studio here, and that Texie would come back from time to time and do dance lessons or do the Dallas summer musicals and that type of thing. And so she asked Texie, she said, look, we got to have Broadway. We got to have big. We're going to change the uniform. We're going to do something that's kind of like Laugh-In. Right now, the hot pants and the go-go boots are popular. We want to do something like that. And Texie said, well, I don't know if it'll work, but we'll try it. With the right moves, maybe we can pull this off. So they went to Lester Melnick about the uniforms, and they were on the golf course, Tex Ram and Lester Melnick, and he was saying, I don't think that's going to work. But if you think that's going to work, let me give you this, one of my designers, Paula Van Wagner, who, of course, is now in the Smithsonian for the uniform.
Right.
And so she's thrown the uniform to do. And so they come up with some sketches on some napkins. And then, Paula takes that and she makes the uniform. And she was the first one to actually put it on so they could see what it was going to look like. And Pam Seal was the very first real cheerleader to actually put it on and model it. So that started in 1972. So how it changed was Texie had 7 girls, what's known as the Super 7. They had the new uniform, and so as you went around each quarter, they would change their spot. So by the time the game was over, each area had the cheerleaders in front of them. And so the uniform was not exactly accepted by everybody at first.
You mean fans or the girls?
Probably more of the women were like it was a little
too revealing.
Maybe too revealing. Which our uniform, the fringe had to touch the top of the shorts, and the shorts had to be kind of where the ends of your fingers went, Okay. So it wasn't as revealing as it kind of is now.
Yeah.
and it was true go-go boots, And so 71 was when it started, and those girls did great, and they really started the whole new era of it. Then it moved to 10 girls, okay, and then the second year, the third year. They kind of went back and forth between uniforms. They went back and forth between having kind of like a little fringe skirt and then the original uniform. But Tex said no. Everyone likes the hot pants. We're going to stay with the hot pants.
Right.
And so I was the 4th year. Okay, so the Cowboys hadn't been doing that much. They had been winning, but then they hadn't been winning that much. And so we had the new stadium that had been built, and we had state of the art. And so Tex is thinking, well, because the Cowboys are not exactly winning and we can't do that much, talking about them. And we've got 12 rookies we just hired, plus Preston Pearson, which is called the Baker's Dozen on that. Maybe we should focus on the stadium and the girls. So this is how we started getting a little bit more attention. They did a great article about us in one of the newspapers with the Dallas Morning News, and then the Dallas Times-Herald decided they would do their own story. And so they had done an article about the stadium, about the cheerleaders, about the change with that and all of the excitement. And then the next one, the next Scene magazine, they're the ones that came out and actually took pictures of us rehearsing and what we were doing, put us on the front cover, and where I have the picture that says "More Than Sis Boom Ba" in that article. Well, this is also when they decided to do the Ring of Honor. So you had Bob Lilly, we had this excitement going on, and you had 12 rookies and Preston Pearson who said to the news media, you said we're not going to do anything, but we're going to show you different. So this became the Cinderella year. So you had Golden Richards that got us to the wild card. You had Drew Pearson that caught the Hail Mary pass. Then you had Preston Pearson that took us to the game in L.A. that got us to the Super Bowl. And now here we're going to the Super Bowl.
Wow.
And then at the L.A. game, very interesting, we were not sent by the Cowboys. The cheerleaders were sent by a very wealthy man, Sonny Brown, who was at that Vikings game. And when he cheered, when Drew caught that Hail Mary pass, he pretty much got clobbered by the fans. So he decided that now that we were going to LA, he didn't want to be the only one cheering by himself. So I'll just send the cheerleaders.
Wow.
So we were sent, and when we got there, they didn't know who we were. They thought we were just a bunch of pretty girls trying to get in the game for free. And finally, we said, no, we're the Cowboy Cheerleaders. And finally, somebody said, no, let them in, let them in. So interesting, the Coliseum was built for the Olympics. The very first seat was on ground level for the audience. There was a brick wall. You had your running track for the Olympians, and the football field was in the center. So they told us, well, you can't stand there and cheer because you are going to be standing in the way of a paying,
Customers,
fan.
yeah.
And I said, oh, no, sir. I said, there's been a lot of money spent to send us here. You gotta let us try. Who can we talk to? And he said, some particular guy up in the press box. I said, can I talk to him, please? And the other girls were like, yeah, tell him, Pammy, tell him. And so this guy comes down, and my captain of my side of the squad, because now there was 20 of us, and we would do each side of the field and rotate
Like 10 and
around.
10.
Yes, exactly, 10 and 10 rotating around. And he came down, and I said, sir, this gentleman has spent a lot of money for us to come and cheer for the Cowboys, and you just got to find us a spot or a way to at least try to do what we were sent here to do. And he said, well, down at the field goal is a band, and they didn't pay for their seats. And so you can dance down there, but if anybody complains, you're going to have to sit down. I said, done deal. I said, but I need one more thing. And he said, what is that? I said, we need a run-through line. And he said, what's a run-through line? And so I told him, 10 of us will be on one side, 10 will be on the other. And when you announce the Cowboys, we're going to raise our pom-poms as they each come through. And as soon as you've introduced everyone, we'll run all the way down to the field where you have us stationed down there. And so we hadn't cheered for 5 minutes, and we were getting standing ovations. The press box was coming down. We got to have Rams cheerleaders just like you guys. Now, Phyllis George, it was her first year commentating, and they didn't really want us to be competition to us, so they weren't showing us on TV, but all of the magazines and the newspapers were picking us up, and so that was pretty cool. And then prior to that was when Monday Night Football was the spark that really took off. We had Gwenda Swearingen, who was really our kind of Raquel Welch of our squad, and all the cameras followed Gwenda around. And so Howard Cosell had said something like Robert Newhouse was never going to be any Calvin Hill. And that made Dallas fans mad. Probably about as mad as losing Luca. Okay.
I mean, that's okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
get it right up on there.
Yeah.
And so when we walked in that night for Monday Night Football, there were posters everywhere. This is when you could put posters up. And they weren't very nice about Howard. One of the funniest ones was all the way across the Texas Stadium Club, there was Evel Knievel was big at that time with all these amazing jumps, right? And so you had Evel laying down with his mouth wide open, and you had a ramp going up it. And Howard's mouth open and the ramp going up it, and it said, "Evil's next jump will be Cosell's mouth." Right, and so that was the nice one you could tell. So
That's funny.
Howard said if they showed one more poster, he was walking out. So that's when they started showing us as cheerleaders, and then when they hit Gwenda and she gave that wink, that was the spark. Now you got us going to LA. Now we're going to the Super Bowl, which was called the Super Bowl, and it was called the Cinderella year because it had to have been a fairy godmother that got the Cowboys to the Super Bowl, what they were calling it. And so who knew they were filming the movie Black Sunday? So now we end up in a movie. So all of these things, and the most televised Super Bowl of its time, and then the world realizes the Dallas Cowboys have cheerleaders, and now everybody wants them. That's really how that all really took off. But we had to have all the pioneers before us, starting in '61, that kept building it, and I just happened to be there when the lucky breaks, happened, which was fantastic. So yeah, it's a great story.
So that's amazing. Okay, so then how long did you stay as an actual cheerleader?
Well, I was picked to be the captain for the next year. Dee Brock decided that she was going to start El Centro College here in downtown Dallas, that there needed to be a college.
She started the college?
Yeah, she started the college.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about some amazing women.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of people would assume a cheerleader would have done that.
I know, yeah. So she was the original director, right? And she was seeing a need for that. And so Tex Schramm had hired a new secretary, Suzanne Mitchell, and he looked at her, and we were getting calls that they wanted the cheerleaders to do this, be on this TV show, do that, and all of this. And he pushed everything over to her, and he said, "You got to take this and run with it." Well, she didn't exactly like me. She didn't vote for me to come in the next year. I don't know if she felt like I was, too like a competition or something, but I was thrilled that the Cowboys organization was getting more behind us. But she didn't select me. And so from there I said, well, okay, I'm going to still dance. And we have something here called the Grapevine Opry in Grapevine, Texas. And Susie Slaughter, millionaire, her niece, Cheeside Childs, wanted to be like a Dolly Parton, I guess, with Porter Wagner and all of that. Had all of her outfits made by the same person, nudie, like Elvis did, gold thread and everything and all of that. And she had a great little show going on. And so I was told, you should go over there and audition to sing. And, country wasn't exactly my thing, but A Puppet on the String, was a really good one from Elvis that I liked, and then later, I did a duet. I sent you that clip of Two Fools Collide that went over really well for that. And I was sitting there and I thought, man, she's got all these singers, and I want to work every week. She didn't have any dancers, and we could be kind of like Saturday Night Live people behind her too, because her thing was being a comedian, because she didn't really have any talent. She was funny, she really was, but as far as being a singer, a dancer, but being a great person to put shows together and all that, she was fantastic at it. So she was given $1 million a year to produce her show.
Wow.
And she used to perform with Johnny High. They had a big fight right before we came. So Susie gave Johnny $1 million to do his show in Fort Worth, and Cheeside was doing hers, and we come in after this fight, which was called the it was a cute name about this war with the Opries. But anyway, a soap opera. That's what they were calling it, the soap opera. And so we came in at that point, and so she hired us to be her dancers, and so she still let me sing a little bit. And so from that, my dance partner that I had met in the department store, and we had started doing disco together. And so we started winning a lot of dance contests from doing the disco and all of that. So now we had our little regular gig going with the Great Mount Opry. We started doing some more fashion show type things and all of that. And then came an opportunity to be able to audition for Dance Fever. So Dance Fever came about because when they filmed Saturday Night Fever, Denny Terrio had done the really hot parts of the dance. A new producer came in, hired Lester Melnick, and he did just the partner stuff, the stuff that wasn't so amazing. But when John Travolta goes down on his knees and pops back, that was all Denny. So, Merv Griffin's show was very popular at that time, which I had been on from being a Texas cowgirl, which was a lot of alumni that got together so that we could continue to dance. And we were doing really good until some of the girls got tricked into doing Playboy magazine. But we did get to do the Gabe Kaplan in Las Vegas. Great stories with that we'll have to go back and do as well. But so Merv Griffin had us on his show, and now here I was getting an opportunity to do another Merv Griffin show. So Merv Griffin had interviewed Denny Terrio to about how did it feel that you didn't get a credit for the most amazing parts of the dance that you choreographed for John Travolta. And he said, yeah, it's kind of a bummer, and now all of these, dance contests are coming up. And so Merv said, hey, let's do a dance contest on my show. They did that one dance contest on his show, and Dance Fever was born.
Wow.
They thought it was only going to last a year, and it went quite a few seasons. And so we got to audition for that. Well, when we made it, we took a kind of a country Cotton Eye Joe. We were the first to bring spandex to Western wear. We got our boots from Cutterbills, the tall boots and everything. And I was really upset when Reba McEntire stole my outfit and her dancers were using that stuff.
Oh, man.
Okay, I forgive you now. But
highest form of
yeah,
flattery.
you can't copyright costumes or dance steps. Music, yes, but those things you can't. And so it was a three-way tie of all things. So we just barely lost that contest there for Dance Fever. However, we ended up in the promo, and then we were asked to do their first Christmas special, which was pretty cool. So we did that. So from the Dance Fever world, from that,
Did I see that you were up for the Vanna White, which she ended up getting on Wheel of Fortune?
Yes.
Wow.
So I was signed with Peggy Taylor Agency, did a lot of commercials and that type of thing. And then I was hired for Incredible Productions, which still goes today, and we worked with everybody. We were kind of the opening show. And so during that time with Incredible Productions and with auditioning, Rhodey Kent is a very well-known casting director here in Dallas. And she knew about this Miss Hollywood contest coming up. And my dad had been in a horrible car accident, and he was in ICU at Baylor. And I get a phone call in the waiting room, and it is Rhodey Kent asking me that do this Miss Hollywood contest. She said, Pam, I just think you can win because you sing and you dance. You can show everything. And she said, so I really think you need to do this. So I said, okay, I sure will. Dick Clark, I watched him all my life. I would love to meet Dick Clark.
Sure.
So we had, they auditioned about 3,000 people for this, 3,000 girls for this show. 9 of the 25 came from Dallas. We got talent here in this city.
Wow.
You know, you think about Boz Scaggs and Steve Miller and, you know, all these people that come from Dallas. But so we had, so here we are going to the Miss Hollywood contest, and that was quite an experience with that. And I got getting to work with Jeff Margolis, one of the top producers, and spending time with Dick Clark. Oh my gosh, meeting his wife, and we were friends right up till his passing day. And he was like that with all of his bandstand kids, and he really taught us. He really taught us a lot. So everybody thought it was going to be between me and Deborah Sandlin to win this contest. And there was this girl, I can't even think of her name right now, that ended up winning. And I was teaching her all week how to do the dance steps because she couldn't do the dance steps. And it was making us look bad as a group, right? And so I was working with her, and all of that stuff. And we're doing the contest, and just amazing. And so I make the top 10. And so I'm just really thrilled about making the top 10. And I'm just like going, okay, maybe. And so I don't make the top 5. And so in my audition, which is, you can still see it today if you Google Miss Hollywood 1986. It's actually a fabulous pageant. And I'm told that many Miss Texas girls are told to watch my section to kind of prepare themselves for that. It was an amazing contest. And so Jerry Seinfeld was on that. He hadn't become a star yet. And so when I didn't make it, I realized what God wanted me to show is that win or lose, I'm still the same person. Win or lose, I'm still going to get out there. Win or lose, I'm still going to have a great attitude. And just like I said in my interview part, that if things don't work out for me, then they weren't right for me. And I want to have the things that are right for me, because I've learned that on your journey, you don't want to get off the track, because even though you thought you should go this way, you might be meeting somebody else on the other direction that's going to get you where you really need to be.
Sure.
So that's kind of what I learned from that. But that got me on 700 Club. That got me an audition on Star Search. And I was very blessed, coming from drummers and loving drummers, that Michael Hosick of the Doobie Brothers was in town in a divorce situation going on. And one of the studio guys I used to work with, he said, man, you really should have let Michael help produce you on your vocal track that you're going to send to Star Search. Well, another friend of mine, Justin Wild, had written some great original music. When you hear the Christmas song, it must have been The Mistletoe, that's Justin. And he had written a really great song, I Caught You Pulling Off the Perfect Crime, which was, stealing this heart of mine. And Michael loved that song. He said, we got to do that. So we actually made the show, but then the producer said, I don't think that's not a song people know, and we want to go with covers. So they replaced me. So that was a big,
Jeez.
So sometimes doing those cover songs, guys and girls, is not a bad thing.
I'm seeing a theme, because it's like you're this uber talented performer, but then you're doing these contests. So it's like there's disappointment when you're just performing, and was the main thing.
And I'm having a good time because, like my dad said, good exposure, bad exposure, getting exposure, that's what keeps your name.
Oh, yeah. Let's skip ahead. How did you end up in Hollywood?
Okay, so because of the dance fever, I was asked to come back and be a DJ. So Chuck Sissel was sizzling hot with that sizzling Latin routine that number 3's got. That, you know, so I was that girl, right?
Yeah.
For that. So when I was doing those shows for that was when Merv Griffin was coming up with this idea to do Wheel of Fortune. And the producer of Dance Fever said, I really want you to audition for that. So he picked out my outfit and arranged for the audition. And there were 5 of us that were selected. 5 pictures were sitting on Merv Griffin's desk for him to choose who he thought should be this girl that was going to spin the letters. You know?
Right.
And I don't know if they liked my audition or not. Maybe I was too much. Let me tell you, don't pick the X. Don't pick X. An A.
You're helping.
You know, maybe that blew it for me.
That's
okay.
funny.
No, I didn't really do it. But anyway, so Vanna White had been dating a guy that was on one of those CIS shows. And he was the one, I can't think of his name, but he played around with the gun that had a fake bullet in it, put it to his head, and it killed him. And she was kind of suffering, you know, getting over that. And so Merv kind of knew that story, and he went right over my picture, right over to Vanna's picture. And she got the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
But it was a great opportunity to get to be selected and to be considered,
Sure.
you know, for the wheel. But, Dance Fever opened that up. And again, because it was all Merv Griffin. So it was kind of funny how we ended up with Texas Cowgirls being on the Merv Griffin show and actually interviewed with Gregory Peck. We had Mick Jagger's first wife, Bianca Jagger, and I wanted to say, well, you know, I went to high school with the girl that's with you're with your husband now, but I didn't say that.
Yeah, that's probably not
And
wise.
then Harrison Ford, he had just finished doing the Star Wars, but we hadn't seen that movie yet. But he was just starting to produce that, and I was like, "Whoa, Harrison!" So that was really, and also Gregory Peck. I wanted him to adopt me. So that was really great. And then from also doing the DJ of the Dance Fever show, you know, they had musical guests. This is when I became friends with Mickey Gilley and Lou Rawls, and we stayed friends for a long, long time. Well, when I decided that to move to Hollywood from the Dance Fever, the manager of the Two Girls Motion, especially Janet, who married Wayne Gretzky later, he had some auditions he thought I would be right for, and he said, I really think you should come out here and audition. So I came out to start auditioning. He had a girl that was in Mickey Rooney's Sugar Babies, and she wasn't going to be in her apartment for a while. So I took over her apartment in Los Angeles.
Wow. What's funny is my dad was a theater critic, and I saw that show in Chicago while you were staying in her apartment.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah.
Wild.
And so the deal was I paid her $230 a month rent in LA.
That's expensive.
Because,
back then.
well, actually, it was not. It was so low because she was locked into a 10-year deal.
Like
with
rent control.
with this triplex, and they kept trying to get her to move out so they could raise the rent.
Sure.
But she kept all her clothes there, and so she would send back what she didn't need, and then I would send the winter clothes, and I would pack up her summer clothes, and so that was kind of how that deal worked. And so I was able to audition. Well, one of the things they wanted me to audition for was they started a new spring football league, and it was the LA Express. And this is Lee Majors was one of the owners, and so at that audition is how I met Lee and how we dated
You dated Lee Majors?
I dated Lee Majors a little bit while he was doing Fall Guy.
That is so cool.
It was really cool, but I was in love with my guy that still was here in Dallas. And then when he found out that I was seeing Lee Majors, he thought he could move to Hollywood now. And so anyway, but a disaster. He's the reason why I left Hollywood.
Okay,
California wasn't big enough for the both of us once he
Jeez.
got there.
Okay.
So, but anyway, yeah, I shouldn't have messed up with Lee, but anyway, it was great to get to know him and go to the Fall Guys set and all of that. Was very, very thrilling. And actually, I became really good friends with his chauffeur. And if I wanted to go somewhere, Rex would come pick me up in the limo. We'd go around. And then because of roller skating, and I would exercise like that, I was roller skating once down to the mailbox, and this other black limo stops. And this guy gets out and he says, do you know where this particular recording studio is? I said, there's a recording studio here? I said, I'm a singer. I should know where it is, And we looked, and I skated over to it. I said, it's here. It's right here. And he said, well, here's my card. If I give it to you, will you call me? And the old joke.
Sure.
Oh, what do you want me to call you, baby? And so I said, okay, Jack Wald. Okay. So he had produced Barry Manilow and all these people and everything. Well, this was my Me Too story. Where I met him at Carlos and Charlie's, where all the music people hung out, right? And so I'm taking my demo tapes and everything, thinking like he's really interested in my music, right? And all of that. And then as he's looking through my books and everything, he kind of, like he attacks me and throws me down on the couch, and I grab a lamp, and I said, Jack, this is not funny. I said, I'm a Texas girl. And I said, this lamp is about to go over your head if you do not get off.
Wow.
And so he said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, oh, but if I had known I was going to meet you, I just want you to be my American girlfriend. I would have left the German girlfriend at home. I said, listen, in Texas, there is no other girlfriend.
Yeah.
There is one girlfriend. You got to get that right. I said, so no music deal with you, no girlfriend with you. Give me my stuff. And so he called me several times trying to apologize, and maybe I should have. But he was producing Laura Branigan. Gonna take a lot of love. That's what he was doing at that time. So anyway, so that was kind of my Me Too story.
Right. And then so you said, again, I
know there's so
do
much.
a two-parter with you. Jeez.
I know.
There's so much.
So, yeah. And so I guess, in there, whenever you're trying to do work and make a living, I ended up auditioning for Ford Motor Company. The Texas State Fair, we have 3 million people a year that attend.
The car thing is a big thing there, too.
Auto show, especially back then, was huge. And so my agent had actually asked me to come and be a contest girl at Ford. Every hour on the hour, we picked a winner for a Ford watch. And they were cute. They were really cute watches. Probably the cutest one was the Pinto, and the little legs would kick on the Pinto. That's probably worth a lot of money, anybody that has that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the gentleman there said, well, hey, I see that you sing for 40,000 people for Mary Kay show. I see that you perform with this Incredible Productions. You're doing Southwest Airlines for Herb Kelleher, and American Airlines, and Home Interiors for Mary Crowley, which, of course, her son owned the Mavericks. They started the Mavericks here in Dallas. And he said, what's a couple of hundred people around a turntable for you? He said, I think you should be the narrator. I said, Jim, I think that would be great. Jim sent my stuff. They hired me all because of Jim, and I started a wonderful career traveling for Ford Motor Company. It was amazing. It was great, but the thing is, they don't use monitors, and that's how I blew my voice out.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you get up into the New York Auto Show, LA Auto Show, but especially New York and Detroit, where there's 1 million people like a
yeah.
day, and there's so much noise and you can't really hear yourself.
Yeah.
I overdid it till I got a nodule on my vocal
Oh,
cord.
no, okay.
And so that kind of, set me out a little bit, on the singing. Now, a lot of people like the raspiness,
Sure.
But I didn't. I liked my clear, clean voice. So I did auto show until 2001, 9/11. Actually 2002, I guess you would say, because right as I was getting my outfits ready to go for our training in Detroit, the 9/11 disaster happened. And so this was the first time getting on an airplane like 2 days later after this had happened, and having to go through all of the luggage check and all of that sort of thing. Pretty different. I'd never seen DFW like a ghost town, because people were always
Sure.
hugging and kissing and in the restaurants, and like you would even walk down the hall as your the ramp or the person getting on the plane back then. But now none of that. With the 9/11 that had happened, and so I did it for about one more year with the Ford Motor Company till 2002. And then my daughter was getting older, needed me more at home. My parents, whom whenever I would travel 3 days here, 5 days there, I did like 92 days a year for Ford. And about half of them are right here in the Dallas area, with the fair going so long and everything. We just decided that it was time to come off the road because they needed me more, whereas I had needed them in the past. And Chelsea, my daughter, she needed me more at home. And I didn't realize how sometimes being away, even though you're talking on the phone and everything's set and perfect, with your food is here, your clothes are here, sometimes you just need mama, and you can be a little resentful that, well, my mother's, in San Jose,
Right.
and I would like to see my mother.
Sure.
So I was good. That was really a good thing.
Well,
that
I will
came off
say,
the road.
as I know Chelsea, that you definitely came back and were a great mom, because she has nothing but great things to say. She's the one that said to have you on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she
Let me
says we've
tell you,
said, done
talk
wonderful.
about the joy of my life was getting my daughter. And so what was great about all of these gigs that I had, I never missed being a room mother but once. I was room mother, Bible club mom, band mom later, drumline mom, and I'm still band mom, and I still love being band mom. So yeah, it's very exciting, because seeing your child do things is better than seeing yourself do things.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a little bit more time left to get like what you have coming up. What's next for Pam?
We have the Miss Senior Texas that I've been very honored to be asked several years in a row to participate in. And Miss West called the other day asking me are you ready yet? And of course, you really need to be retired to give it the kind of time that
Right.
it's due. So that looks like that's going to be in my future. And of course, with our Dallas Cowboy Cheerleader alumni, Netflix was huge last year. The show ended up being #1 for, I think, about 7 weeks.
Wow.
And now part 2 is going to start on June 18th.
Okay, great.
And so I have a few little spots in the original. I don't know. I'll be really shocked if I'm in this next section, but we want you to watch it. And then, of course, the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders right now are going to be at the music hall. They are doing a live show with auditions, and they're going to several Texas cities doing that, which is pretty interesting. And so that's something that will probably end up in the next Netflix series, probably in the third series on that. And then, of course, there's music, there's books, there's puppets.
I just want to say you definitely need to write this book. Please, I know you probably already want to, but as an outside listener to these stories, please do this book because I don't have the time for all these stories. There's so many more, I'm sure.
There's lots of stories.
Yeah.
Lots of good ones.
Yeah, well, Pam, thank you so much. We'll link to everything so people can find you. And it was so great having you on.
Oh, thank you so much, Andrew. I have been thrilled to be on Dallas Famous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Pam Seal for joining us. You can check out her links in the show notes. Opening theme song, Salim Nurala, Unstoppable, and the closing theme song, Electric Ants, The Place to Be. Thank you to the Mullen & Mullen Music Project for supporting this podcast. We'd also like to thank the Deep Ellum Community Center for letting us record there. You can catch the Dallas Famous podcast every Sunday at 1 o'clock on Deep Ellum Radio, and then Wednesday on all the podcast platforms. Please like, subscribe, enjoy, share, all the good things. We'll see you next time.